Alright, so this is gonna be, unfortunately, I'm not like one of those big book YouTubers who, like, know how to properly set up everything. I don't got a nice chair of, books or anything, sadly. I'm not that, not that upper class, unfortunately. If you guys know what that is, you know what that is. He makes good videos. So, a while back, I want to do some reviews for Highschool Dxd novels and other video game based novels. I've done a few reviews for stuff I worked on with school, but nothing really too crazy. So, yeah, we're going over the first Highschool Dxd light novel, which was not a bad read, not in the slightest. It was definitely a little weird, a lot less perverted than what I was expecting, to be honest with you. But I think it covers, I want to say, the first 4 episodes. I could be wrong about that. I haven't seen, I got familiar with the series through the anime because I was on Xbox one day. And, well, preteen adolescent sees a series like that pop up in front of them. And obviously, like, what's all that about? So, I do remember watching the series. I think I stopped watching it at season 4, or no, I think I stopped at season 3 because they had an art style change. I think after season 2, still overall fine. You know what you're getting into. But so I wanted to try out the source material because it kind of impressed me. How does a series like that actually get off the ground? How do you get an anime and pretty solid, well-read recognition? I would say it's pretty well known in the circle of people who hang out in this area. I think it's one of the more classic harem animes, which is still going on today. So I don't know when it. I don't think this actually has a date for when it was first released because this is the USA version. So I didn't bother to look up when it first came out. Figured it doesn't really make much of a difference. But yeah, no, I know. I'm pretty sure it covers, if not the first 4 episodes, like the first 3, because I do believe there are some filler episodes in season 1, and this book ends with Rainier's defeat at the very end. So I have some notes written here for the most part, roughly about 17 pages worth. I have some going over some character stuff, and some power scaling shenanigans, since that's what we do on this channel for the most part. So, the book, I'm gonna read off of here and just ad lib as I go along. The book immediately starts with a brief excerpt specifically regarding Issei's reaction to his death. Yeah, okay, that's true. So, instead of the first... that's true. So, instead of starting you right away, you're supposed to catch your audience with a hook more often than not when you're writing a book. I kind of felt in this in my own story. But I know the general idea of what you're supposed to go with. You're supposed to grasp the reader from word go and kind of drag them along, or... I say drag them along, but they don't want it. But you don't want them to make them feel like they're being dragged along. You want them to get interested. So the very first page, after you get past a couple of color drawings, including one nude shot of Rias, I believe one nude shot of Rias. I can't look right now for Latin reasons. The first page is, I believe, specifically talking about the girl had red hair. I'm not going to quote directly. I think it says something along the lines of the girl had red hair, the same color as blood, and then Issei feels his hand is warm, looks down, and is like, oh, that's right, I'm dying. So, 2 things to take away there, which I think I'll maybe mention as character thing, but that's great character building. That's kind of heavily, pops at you. Oh shit, the main character's dying. But also lets you know that the main character's dying, but he cares more about this attractive looking woman, because we're led to believe she's attractive. She has like next to no real descriptions in the book. There's like one description, I think, on like page 80 something. For as perverted as the series is, which to be fair, among the pervertedness of the series, it's rather wholesome by comparison. It's rather tame across the board. There's like next to no descriptions about the women here at all. If you didn't see, like if this wasn't like here and it wasn't for like the nude shot on the front, there's only like one description of Ria's, and like I don't even think she gets more than, I think she gets 2 in book pictures, because this book does not gives you chapters. There's 4 chapters in the entire book, spanned over 178 pages. They're not densely populated at all. There's next to no description. Like the school is not described. The park where he gets killed the first time is not described. A lot of that stuff's not described in the slightest. I probably should mention, I expect you to know the lore a little bit when I go into this. So they had a lot of creative liberties. I think either I don't know which came first, the manga. I think the anime came first, then the manga. But they had a lot of creative liberties with designing the set locations, which actually kind of surprised me for the most part. Especially in Western books, because this is an Eastern light novel. In Western books, there's a lot of description. You can't get away too often without giving some degree. Like I'm talking like the sometimes there's not even description. I don't even think the school is ever actually described. If it was so brief I missed it. I know the park only like says there's a fountain and that's it. Nothing else about the park is described whatsoever. Not the pathways, not how many trees or like a decent amount of trees, nothing. Just nothing. Half of the characters are never even described, I think, in detail of what they look like. If it wasn't for the pictures, or if you've seen the anime, you probably wouldn't know that that's a situation going on there. So, if there's a difference to that, it will be mentioned in the character section. But yeah, no. So just nice hook immediately and gives you an idea which the main character's like. Shit. Okay. So the problem is that when I wrote these notes, I used text to speech to get through it quickly because I read this the night before Lent. So I'm trying to see here. Is waiting for you to show up is when he's given the Mark the 11 call demon in from the beginning. Yeah, okay. So while he's waiting for, I don't know if her name's Lisa. I guess it might be Lisa. While he's waiting for Rainier the first time, I mentioned very briefly. I think this is in the anime as well. That's where he gets his mark when he shows up 3 hours early to the date. I remember this, and he's very excited, and some random person gives him the demonic symbol that will let him summon Rias later. Issei references how the girls or how the school he went through on page 33, page 3, not weird, was an all girls school. Yeah, so he went to an all girls or the school he goes to now used to be an all girls school, but it recently opened up to co-ed. He does reference that the test to get in is actually pretty hard, but he did manage to get into his perverted nature. Issei's a weird guy. He is incredibly weird. The first time I read this book, and I'll talk about Issei more later, but I just want to be brief about it. The first time I read this book, I did not like Issei at all. He gives off and I think I'll mention this again. He gives off massive incel vibes. Really, kind of the type of guy who's like, my life is terrible until it's not. Then my life is great, kind of situation. I think really just hammers it home. But he's so like, I want to say like so little grace about it. I know it sounds weird to say, but it's like fuck. The way he thinks about his friends, just here it is. On page 15, Issei kind of makes it clear he doesn't like his friends, but they're literally just like him, so it's kind of a little annoying that he has this issue with them. I understand he wants to be popular and the like, but he comes off as a super. Huh. For some reason, perverts censored in text in voice to speech or voice to text. That's a little fucking weird. Yeah, no. He considers them lesser than him, which is kind of weird. And also, you definitely feel that these guys are only friends because they all like fucking porn. It's about it. They don't at the beginning they don't really have any friendship personality traits beyond just liking porn. Which I mean I guess that's enough to get a friend group going. There was one particular moment where I don't think I wrote this down in the book. I don't think I wrote this in the notes. However, there was a particular moment when he's bitching about his friends where he's like, I'm nowhere near as perverted as them. Like, I was accused of staring at the girls naked in the changing room through a peephole because they did, but I didn't do that. And the reason I didn't do that is because they wouldn't let me do that because they wouldn't fucking get out of the peephole with those fucking assholes. So, like, just as much a pervert as them, woe is me type of character, very off-putting. I think there was at one point too. He straight up says the line. He says something along the lines of, "The fact that there's handsome guys out there getting laid while I'm not just infuriates me or just makes me hate the world." And I'm like, just. It comes from a different time period, so you don't really feel like incel vibes. I think when it first came out, it was just Because in the anime, it comes off comedic. I think this might be a situation of the maybe it's supposed to come off comedic. Maybe it's like just an issue with the way like jokes and comedy works, but it does not translate well into a novel. Some things work in books, some things work in anime. It does not vice versa often, I think. So, also a little bit of a side note, considering how perverted the actual book is and how perverted the main character is in the first person, because the book is actually written in first person, you're getting Issei's thoughts directly through it, which is kind of where this point gets a little weird. It's a little weird that up until this point, none of the girls have really been described as anything beyond just beautiful and the like. We don't get any real talk about their measurements or anything outside of a few comments. But, like, Issei himself doesn't really do that, which is just interesting to me, yeah, because I've already said before, they're not really described. Keep in mind, we're looking at this from the gaze of a pervert, but they're not talking about how round their ass is or how, like, fucking... We do get one line. Okay, no, so it's coming up. But, like, there's, like, next to no descriptions about the girls. If you didn't have pictures of them, you would honestly only know their hair color and that they're supposed to be beautiful. Which kind of makes me wonder if maybe the writer just didn't feel comfortable describing the girls this early on. Because I know there's like a story about this writer in particular later on, because the series gets more and more perverted, but there was supposed to be a power-up for Issei at some point down the line where he's supposed to get stronger by sucking on Rias's breasts. But I think it was his editor or his illustrator, I think it was his editor, basically begged him to like, don't do that to me, man. Please don't do that to me. And also a little bit of a side note, and this will cover that, yeah. Which is just interesting to me, even on page 26, when he sees Rias sleeping naked beside him, nothing about her is mentioned, besides just the fact that she's, like, beautiful or that she's graceful or something. Okay, but then we get to page 29, we finally get a description of her. Her narrow hips, her long, shapely legs, her thighs, her nicely shaped buttocks, not to mention her breasts, which were rich and voluptuous, even her nipples. For some reason, I mentioned the voice text is censored. So that's the direct quote, I think. That's like the only description you get for any of the girls. Akano doesn't get a description. Agia doesn't really get a description about her appearance either, I think, for the most part, besides just the fact that she's like Issei's like fucking top pick for a blonde girl. I think that's like the most you get there, which is a little weird to me. The Code Research Club is introduced after about 40 pages into it. The Sacred Gears are introduced in page 42, but it just mentions that most of them are casual and can really just only affect society, basically. Some are starting to challenge demons and fallen angels. If you're watching this and you don't know, which I mean by this point you probably already left, but if you don't know what those are, in Highschool Dxd, there is a cosmology, heaven, hell separated between fallen angels and demons, heaven's just angels. There are these powerful objects that can exist in human hands, but they can also be used by angels, demons, fallen angels, etc. That grant special powers, and depending on which one you get like super massive powers, or you get like fucking nothing. One or the other. So, Issei, I believe, is mentioned throughout the book to have a twice critical. I guess that's what most characters assume his sacred gear is. It's not. If you've seen the series, you know that's not the case. However, Issei mentioned that humans are resurrected by demons are forced to serve the demon that resurrected them. Yeah, because some of this is lore notes, and some of this is actually about the story. I remember that one thing that kind of irked me that I did not like is none of the main characters are described until they show up, and they're not described. What I mean by that is Issei. So I think in the anime they fixed this. In the anime, I think in the opening scenes, you see the main cast of characters at that point in the series. I believe in the anime, you see Issei walking across the school. You see Rias on a staircase, I think. You see Kiba, or Kai, no, I think it's Kiba? Hang on, what the heck is his name? Hang on. I have to scroll down a little bit. Yeah, Kiba. You see Kiba, talking to some girls, I think. I think you see Akano doing something. Like, you see them all. They show up in the book, and that's when they're mentioned. Even though they're incredibly popular, and you think Issei would mention, they're like, holy shit, the queen of the school is even better than the rest. No mention of that whatsoever. It's so fucking weird. Again, maybe it's because I'm coming in with the perspective of like I know what the rest of the series holds, but I haven't read the other books. I've just read the first one, but it's just kind of weird to me. So on page 49, she mentions there's a way to rank up for humans as we turning demons, so they don't stay trash. Yeah, no. So basically, she ends up manipulating Issei by telling him like, "Hey, you can get stronger if you just do these things." I say manipulating loosely here because she's not lying. It's just that Issei's kind of trash about doing these things. Uh, every major big shot in the family is indebted to Rias. Unfortunately, a lot of these notes are lore related because again, there's only 4 fucking chapters. So chapter 1 is the date, and then dying, and then waking up and being under demon's control. Chapter 2, I want to say, is Issei just learning how to be a demon for the most part. Chapter 3, I believe, because I should have wrote down chapter summaries for the most part. Chapter 3 is Issei meets Aja, or Asia. I think it's Asia. And they start becoming friends, which we'll talk a little more about that later. And part 4 is Issei, Koneko, and Kiba trying to save Asia, essentially, from from the fallen angels and the like. Which, again, don't really get descriptions either. I don't think the fallen angel ever gets a description, so I think, again, those are just liberties taken in the anime. You get notes that demons can only go about at night. Actually, I had to write this down. Yeah, one of the funnier moments in the book is that Issei sucks with magic. If you've seen the anime, you already know this, but despite Issei being relatively strong, his control over magic is so trash he can't use a summoning circle, so he has to fucking hand out packets for free or on foot, and he has to like bike across town. Issei is given a pawn rank. To understand that a little bit, this series works off rating games. I don't want to talk about too much here because it's not really mentioned all that much. Besides the fact that it's knights, rooks. Well, I mean, it's just a chessboard basically. Knights have agility and speed boosts. Rooks have strength and durability boosts. Bishops have support boosts, and queens have it all. And I think so do kings. And pawns have the ability to change into any version of them at any time when they're in the enemy territory designated by their king piece. Which really kind of makes it sound like pawns are way more overpowered than the rest of them, if we're being honest. Like, to the point where because I don't know how the fight's going to go in the book versus the anime, but I know there's a fight coming up in the next book. I think that's like kind of a little silly that the pawns kind of get so destroyed. On page 94 is when Issei gets attacked by the priests. Yeah, no, so, yeah, page 94. So I think that's when, like, chapter 3, or close to the end of chapter 3. He goes on a 2-day date with Aja. That's another thing, too, I didn't mention from the anime differences with the book, but in the book, the dates are hardly ever described in detail, and they're, like, done in, like, a page or two, whereas in the anime, I think there's, like, a 5-minute, like a fucking, montage of the dates between these characters. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's go behind there. Not a lot of detail. Issei, obviously, well, I think I'll talk about this a little more in character. Yeah, Issei screams at failing, screaming Aja's name over and over again. And as he's crying, his sacred gear fully awakens because emotion, it's tied to emotion, because of course it is. And yes, he ends up debating Rias, or on page 121, he ends up arguing with Rias about trying to save Asia. However, she doesn't want to do it, but he says like, fuck you, I'm going to go do it. And well, if you've seen the anime or read the manga or anything, he goes to save her, which I'm actually a little surprised here. Because it goes by really fast. Like again, it's like 200, it's less than 200 pages. Not a lot of detail, but you do get a lot of character sections in there. There's actually one section I did forget about that. I'm surprised it's not in my notes. I don't know when this happens in the anime. I think it's why I think it's like episode 4. There is one scene where they encounter a demon who's abandoned their master, who has just gone around killing humans, which is fine, fine scene. It's meant to demonstrate what the actual like pieces on the board can do. Because Issei only finds out he's a pawn or what a pawn can do. I want to say near the end of the book, but no. Yeah. Beyond that, it's just that they just beat the shit out of it really easily and move on. There's not really too much here narratively. It's a pretty standard setup. There's a lot of things mentioned. Like she has a big ship that is never mentioned specifically, which does come back. I want to say in season 2 of the anime. I don't know what books they're coming in though, but yeah, no, very bare bones across the board. If you don't like the characters, which Issei can be a little hard to work with, you're not gonna like the book. Um, Beyond that, oh, I have a scene here praising Issei specifically. On page 140, we do get a good scene with Issei as he tears out the spear's bed at his legs, despite them burning so badly that his legs were scorched black, and he just tears them out of his legs. The spears dissipate in light before even flying to the ground. Despite him still getting boosted, he falls to the ground, obviously due to the pain and damage he sustained. Yeah, Issei by the end of it is. Oh, and I guess we'll talk about Issei the character now, since I didn't really mention too much about the book notes here. Um, yeah, despite him being a pervert in first person, I think this is clearly intentional to try and like circumvent his perverted nature, because and obviously if you watch the anime you know this, but his relationship with Asia or Asia, whatever Asia, uh, is a lot more pure than his like character is as a whole. So it's a nice counterbalance between the two of them, which I thought was well needed. It makes his hero moment where he goes to save her a lot more palatable, and I'm not gonna say palatable. So the problem is that there's nothing wrong with my personal opinion. There's nothing wrong with the main character being motivated by some degree of attraction to go save somebody. It's definitely not the most wholesome motivation, but it's fine. But when the entirety of the book is the character being like a leech and a pervert the entire time, you do have to counterbalance that a little bit. Although I think that gets changed later on. But to be fair, showing the heroic traits now makes it easier to swallow later on. Once he actually gets a girlfriend for the first time, yeah, he just looks down on his friends so badly. He kind of like makes fun of them. It's just weird. Actually, hang on a minute. When he shows up hours early for his first date, he ends up spending his time counting the women with glasses walking by, and he ended up with over 100 counts of women, or of women. Yeah, no. So I guess he spends his time when he waiting for his date by just counting women. Uh, he is a little sad when he's dying that he won't be able to take care of his parents, which again these are good character traits to have. Like overall pervert, but they kind of sprinkle in that heart of gold situation where it's like one massive bad character trait. And then just like a lot of good in, like there's good in there, like it's just waiting to come out. But man, he just comes off so fucking strong about it. Honestly, yeah, I mentioned last making passionate love with the girls. That very moment filled me with hate for the injustices of the world. Yeah, just too much of a fucking incel for the most part. Um, where he says he becomes a rook on page 130. A bullet severely injured him the last time. Just bounced off his body. Yeah, for the most part, also you do find out his twice critical is actually the Gauntlet of the Red Dragon Emperor, I think is what it's called. I'm sure I wrote it down somewhere. Either way, it's like Red Dragon Power, which just doubles his ability every 10 seconds, so not bad. Um, Beyond that, his character's just kind of dunzo. There's nothing really else to say about him. He's a very simple main character. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Kiba only gets introduced on page 34 as a popular guy with half-opened eyes, and that's it. I don't even think he appears in a picture in the book. I don't think there's any illustration of him whatsoever. Uh, Basically, we do get Issei talking about how much he loves breasts on page 62. However, Kiba is nice to him for the most part. I think this is the same way it works in the anime, but Issei just doesn't like him because he's a pretty boy. Kiba's been like nothing but nice and supportive to him. I think Issei at one point does say something along the lines of when they go to rescue Aja, he's like, you're not like maybe Kiba's not bad after all, and then when they're like willing to cover him to escape, he's like Kiba, Konako, you guys are my friends, call me by my first name. Because in Eastern cultures, I think there's a like it's kind of like a sign of familiarity to call someone by their first name. Beyond that, Kiba is the knight of the group. Again, if you haven't seen it, he's just super fast. Issei directly states that he's so fast he can't keep up with him. Like he can't, his eyes can't keep up with him. It does imply he also gets faster and faster as he moves. I think in one description. Yeah, extended later on to move faster and faster until it's too quick for the eye to see anymore. So one statement is Issei saying I can't see him, and then their statement just flat out says like too fast for the guy to see. So I don't really know how to take that one. I'm pretty sure that means that other people can't see him now, but that'd be a little weird because the queen and king pieces should have his speed at least. Here, promotion is explained on page 133. We already went over that. Offers to help fight the fallen angel church. We already went over that. Let's see here. Also, the book does actually set this up. That's right. So Kiba's past is rather dark when we get to it eventually, but it does set up right away. There's a little breadcrumb trail the book sets up really nicely. Like the bishop's missing. It says that Kiba himself seems to have a dark past with the church, but it doesn't go into detail about it because he doesn't go into detail about it. So there are sprinkles. Of stuff that is good there that just don't appear for the most part until later on. Which is the way you should set up a series because, again, I'm pretty sure this was written with the premise of being like a complete series. So, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, he basically just like reassures Issei it's the right idea to go save them and just is a nice guy overall. Which is kind of weird because usually in a book like this you would expect the main character to portray him negatively enough to where you might not like him. But that doesn't really happen. Despite the fact that Issei doesn't like him, I don't think you ever get the impression of I should not like him, you know? Beyond that, he fights a character named Freed, who we'll go over briefly, and he uses his holy eraser, which he claims is a sacred gear, which is not his real sacred gear. His actual sacred gear in the series is busted in the lore, which is just silly, but it's what it is. He creates a sword that just consumes light. Apparently he and Konako fight flawlessly with each other. For the most part, he's just a really solid guy. Freed is weird. I think he's also weird in the anime too. He's an important character, I think, at the start. I think he kind of falls off later on and becomes a bit more of a reoccurring gag villain. But he's a priest that got kicked out of the church for enjoying the slaughter of demons too much. And he's just a prick the entire book. I feel like he is meant to be the over eccentric, like hyperactive killer or killer type, and definitely meant to be like the sort of like hyperactive villain, which is fine. But the problem with him is, there's no problem with him. He's actually fine across the board. He does threaten to rape Asia in the book, and he also does kind of imply he just wants to fuck Rainier. So he's a very lustful priest, which again is a little weird to have a super lustful main character and then you have a lustful antagonist. I guess you can argue the idea is that it's supposed to be one-to-one. Like, it's like, oh, maybe the trait itself isn't bad. I don't know, it's just weird. He has a pistol that fires light bullets and has like a little lightsaber weapon that can cut through wood. So right here, saying that she's a spitting image of my ideal beauty in the blonde version in reference to Asia. We're going to talk about Asia now because there's not too much to talk about Freed. He just has 2 fights and that's it. Nothing really too crazy there. Asia has another sacred gear. Hers is, I think, called Twilight Healing, which just heals any injury she puts her hands on. Very useful. She's pretty brave. She has better character traits, I want to say, than Issei does from word go. Yeah, because you're giving her backstory too right away, because she used to be praised as a holy saint by the church until one day she ran into a demon who needed to be healed, and she healed the demon. And when she did that, the church basically just excommunicated her because, like, why would God grant a power that can help demons? So she goes to the Church of Fallen Angels, where they're going to sacrifice her to take her sacred gear because it's supposed to be really powerful. And to be fair, the idea of healing is incredibly powerful. Although I do think the main antagonist Rainier for this book plays it up way too fucking much. She's like, "Oh, I'm so powerful. I'm on par with like the fallen archangels," and it's like your only power is healing. Like how great is that supposed to be? I think she specifically states Rainier that she can heal back any injury dealt to her. So that's pretty good, but again, it doesn't really increase your power, so that's kind of weird. Uh, Asia ends up becoming a bishop by the end to support and protect the other demons. Konako, the lolly character, nothing really about her in this book. She's stoic, she calls him a pervert, and she roasts him a little bit, but that's about it. She's referred to as unbelievably strong with an impenetrable defense, but that's just because she's a rook. That's it. There's nothing really else about her. She's as minor of a character in a book with very little, like... The book has a lot of character interaction, but she's as minor as they come. Akano is... Actually doesn't have a description, but it's not what you would expect. She's the paragon of feminine virtue, and then she and Rias command the admiration of men and women alike. On page 50, when she laughs at you, she's referred to as... she's referred to by her last name, because Issei, because it's in first person, will refer to certain characters by her last name at times. She's confirmed to be the strongest piece next to the president. She has all the attributes of all the other pieces combined. According to page 86, this is for more power scaling things. A little rusty with this one. I'll work out a format for this later. She can use lightning, ice, and fire. Any natural phenomenon she can turn into a weapon to build against her foes. Also, considering the fact that Issei can see the lightning based on the fact that he doesn't claim that the light is too fast for him to see. Like, he can see the lightning. He doesn't say it's too fast or anything. You could argue that Kiba is faster than lightning at this one. So, Rias, outside of the most writing, isn't actually introduced until after Issei gets killed, which is kind of weird because she's on the cover. Already mentioned that. The only reason Issei remembers her specifically is because he sees his crimson blood. It's like, hey, that's the color of her hair. She takes him in as a pawn. She does mention all. I'm pretty sure she mentioned in this book all 8 of her pawn pieces were used to revive Issei. So she can have no more pawns. So at best she can have 2 rooks. She has 1, so she can have 1 more rook. She has all bishops, 1 more knight, and I think that's it. Because she already has 1 rook. Yeah, I think she can only have 2 more pieces for the most part. I could be wrong on that one, but we'll see. She gives direction. She's fine. She cares about Issei. She's a lot more playful. She's willing to use her magic to get things done. She is overprotective, for sure. She comes off a little more motherly in this book than I would say romantic partner. I know it changes later on, but that's probably like a difference between like a senpai and like a kohai situation where it's like, oh well, she's older than or she's above me, so I gotta show the respect. Yeah, but beyond that, she doesn't really do anything else. She does offer to try and help Issei learn his powers, but there's nothing really too crazy that happens there. All she really does is show him the promotion and like make the church count as enemy base, and that's about it. The characters aren't bad, but honestly, I feel like partially I am a little surprised how this book did kick off into a series. I can see it being read and enjoyed, but given how big this series became, I am a little surprised that it's very humble beginnings. It's a rather weak book overall. The climax was solid though, I'll say that one. But yeah. It's actually what I actually did want to write like a light novel setup for sure because it's mainly just character interaction, which is fine, but like there's like it's only like 170 pages and 4 chapters. That's just mind blowing to me. Yeah, no, but for the most part, the characters aren't all that interesting in the first book. They get depth later on. Kiba, honestly, I want to say Issei and Asia were probably the most interesting characters. Again, which is a little weird because the book doesn't even go out its way to describe. Again, it's supposed to be a perverted book, or in the sense of like the main character's a pervert, and I feel like that wasn't written properly. Not too perverted overall, more just kind of like an incel. um, he is a rather chill. He's a rather chill guy though overall. Like when things don't go his way after he gets his demon powers, once he's promised like a harem, he does become a lot more chill about it. When he's there helping the people with their wishes, he hangs out with them if they feel bad. He doesn't. He's not like a dick about it. So he's not overall a bad person or a bad character. It's just really fucking weird dealing with the situation the way he does. There are shenanigans where he ends up like becoming like sharing his love of certain mangas with the people who invite him to, or the people who try and get like a wish for their soul or whatever. It's very unclear. You can get wishes without your soul, but it costs specific things, and not all lives are worth the same. Like there was a guy who was like, what if I would like wish for money or something, and he says like the money would crush you and kill you. What if I wish to see like a harem of beautiful women? You would die before you ever see the women. So he can grant wishes with this device because they have to give him a device to pre-select wishes and like judge souls. The device is not talked about at all though, for the most part. Just like it looks like a phone, I think. But yeah. So there's comedy in there for sure. It's just a bit more, at least I think it's a lot more Eastern based comedy versus Western sensibilities. There were moments where again I was like, ha, that's pretty funny, but very few and far between, which isn't bad because the book is a really short read. I read this entire book, I want to say, in like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So it's definitely there to do its job and move on. So nothing wrong with that. So regarding power scaling information now, because it's just 6 weeks of power selling. Issei stronger at night. The spears thrown by the fallen angels are referred to as light, as are the bullets by the actual. No, as are the bullets by the actual priest. So if you're one of those people who thinks a light object is instantly light speed, you could argue that Issei's light speed from word by the end of the book when he amps himself. He can sense when he's being watched, and he can sense danger. He also mentions that his legs are superhuman because he's moving insanely fast. He does confirm that he's basically cooked alive from the inside out with the angel spear. The light from the angels, spears is poisonous. And while he is stronger than your average demon, I think the fallen angel states that he is stronger than the average demon because he can actually tank a spear. Rhea sleeps in Issei's bed to recover his body. It's never described how she does it specifically, just that she sleeps naked next to him, and the next morning he wakes up without a hole in his chest. They are confirmed to be light. Demons are confirmed to be stronger at night. They are weaker during light, since light is poison to them, so when they're out in the sun they are weaker. When demons are summoned, they can only be sensed by the person who summoned them. Automatically becoming a demon lets you talk in languages of their native world. So, pretty unique stuff. Again, just more demon instinct. Also, killing, if an exorcist kills the demon, they cease to be, their existence is erased. However, it's unclear if that's just when angels and demons die, their existence ceases to be, just by virtue of them being angels and demons, or if people who kill them have the ability to just erase existence with these weapons. I feel like it's the former, but it could be the latter. The rating game's explained, but it's not really what we're talking about right now. Yeah, she mentions Issei thinks the twice critical. Issei does tank Rainier's spears quite often, but when he doubles his power the first time, he's still not able to dodge her ability. It is later confirmed in the book that basically power does equate to speed, so the stronger you are, the faster you are. Yeah, sacred gears are based on emotion. Rainier can instantly heal any wound, no matter the injury, according to her on page 137. So, I mean, that's pretty good. Yeah. So, Issei awakens his sacred gear, the Red Dragon Emperor, which I think is mentioned later. However, this actually is a little relevant for power scaling purposes. The book specifically says it's once every 10 seconds it boosts. However, Rainier says that let's compare respective power levels because they're vastly different. She says, like, if I'm at level 1000, you're stuck at level 1. You can't hope to touch me. Doubling your power still only raises you to level 2. It's futile. You can't possibly beat me. After the actual gym changes from 1 to 2 in the back as it continues to boost, Issei specifically says the power within me. So he does feel the power boosting. So it just kept. I think he says the strength to defeat the enemy before me was multiplying rapidly. She's still able to dodge attacks at this point. However, even as a rook, he can't withstand her light spears or as they stab into him despite his boosted defenses. So Issei just keeps getting stronger, but the fight has no time frame in the book, and I don't know how long it is in the anime. But he is still outclassed even after boosting, again, multiplying rapidly here. And even despite getting messed up by the light spears, he's still just able to power through it. Also, he says power is green, which I like because he focuses on Asia's eyes earlier on. So that's nice. Hang on. Issei states this for the level of power is increasing. When I encountered Rainier earlier this evening, the chasm between our levels have been terrifying. My instincts had all but cowered at her overwhelming presence, and my body was completely frozen. I've been sure I didn't stand a chance. Not so now. The energy flowing out of my gauntlet was incredible nonetheless. I was about to say here, I know will last forever. He says, I know it will not last forever. This attack is a one-time use only. The second unleashed on my phone will be gone forever. So basically, Issei just says that, like, the second he unleashes the power, it's going to be gone forever. However, if he doesn't unleash it, it does multiply. According to Rainier, in response to his power, she says it can't be. How could you possibly surpass me? That energy wave's at least middle class, no high class. I don't know if he loses his power immediately after firing it, but it does become apparent that he clears her level of power relatively easily in a short frame of time. Again, I don't know how long it is in the anime. However, Issei basically says that if she's comparing him to Rias in this scene, and that's his point of reference to work with. This time around, when she throws spears at him, he just brushes them aside and they dissipate into the air, so he can actually deflect her attacks now. Keep in mind that before this, they were stabbing into his body. He had no chance, which just improves his ability overall, since power does correlate to speed. Because according to Issei, on page 144, I couldn't believe how fast I moved. It had been so quick that even Rainier hadn't been able to react in time. So he just went from being outclassed by somebody with light projectiles to blitzing her essentially in the span of a few moments. As he states, his fist caved in Rainier's skull and just kept going even harder. The force of the impact, sends her flying backwards across the room. The furniture smashed into the far wall there, tearing a gaping hole in the stone edifice and saying dust bellowing in the air. When the cloud finally settled, I saw our line spilled on the ground outside. When it was moving, I couldn't tell whether she was dead or not. Whatever the case, she claimed it was about to get back up, and then he passes out. So, here we go. Issei is the Red Dragon Emperor, the rarest of the rare. A Longinus type sacred gear that's supposed to challenge God or Satan. Issei's actual AP in the book is not impressive. Not in the slightest. He hits her with his full strength, and it barely destroys a building, or it doesn't even destroy a building. It barely breaks open a stone wall. Earlier, Rias fires an energy blast that destroys a chair and I want to say a bench at some point. So the AP feats in the first book are garbage across the board. According to Rias, when she says the legends are true, then this is. So Rias is the one who says that the legends are true. The sacred gear doubles a person's power every 10 seconds. Even if you begin at level 1, you can surpass even the highest ranked demons or fallen angels. With enough time, who knows, you might be able to vanquish God himself. Every time it says boost, which is every 10 seconds according to her, it doubles his power. He says doubling my power. Well, as powerful as a sacred gear requires that much time, charge goes with considerable risk. Basically, no one's going to let you stand around and charge up your weapon. So, that makes sense. However, I call bullshit on the 1 every 10 seconds thing. I'd have to rewatch the fight in the anime, but there's no fucking way. Because again, she says 1 to 1,000, so you have to try and explain. Okay, in 2 minutes, Issei is going to get at best 12. So doubling is 2. So then 2 becomes 4. 4 becomes 16. I'm just saying, if you actually look at the numbers, I don't think it's possible to make that gap. You can just argue that she was kind of freeballing it, but it's just a little weird. yeah, Freed mentions that basically when they die, they just get existence race as a whole. Uh, Although when Rainier dies, it does say Rias unleashed a burst of momentary power from her palm of her hand, completely obliterating the following angel. So Rias does state that it just completely obliterates the angel, and given that their existence does get erased when they die, I don't know if that means that Rias herself like can erase you from existence, or if it's just when they die they get erased from existence. Yeah. Also, the final piece of the book basically says that the final like important detail is that in order to resurrect um, a human, you have to provide a certain amount of like rating game pieces, the chess pieces I've been talking about the entire time, in order to resurrect somebody. Depending on how powerful they are, Issei needed all 8 pawn pieces, but depending on the person, they can take less. Maybe I don't think more. I think Issei taking all 8 pawn pieces is probably the highest payment you can make outside of other shenanigans they add later on. Also, apparently, uh, the only reason he does come back to life is because he has a strong affinity to the pawn piece. It's confirmed as red gauntlet arm doubles his strength every 10 seconds. Also, I think Asia kisses him at the very end of the books. I have here Issei gets his first kiss from a girl at the very end of page 159. Also, every time Asia prays, a knife runs through her head. So yeah, the book ends with a foreword about the author, where apparently uh, he was a horror author before writing it. He claims that I guess it's not supposed to be too horny, and that it's supposed to be a schoolyard love story. But obviously, the stigma around the series, not stigma around the series, but the reputation around the series, it's a little bullshit. Yeah, a horror author beforehand. Again, not a bad book overall. It's just not a lot of depth to the characters, which is fine. It's a really short book. There's some nudity in there, I guess, if you're interested in that situation. The characters were fine for the most part, fun. I didn't have a bad time reading it. It's just not. It's just bland for the most part. It's just really plays it safe. Whole character arc in like fucking 4 chapters though, so that's nice. Beyond that, I'm definitely looking forward to reading the second one to see how the series progresses from there. And yeah, overall, just I give it a solid like I want to say like a 7 out of 10. It's a good book, but it's not like a super meaty book. The characters aren't all there, and it doesn't even facilitate the idea of like what the series kind of goes around it. Issei's a really, you either like Issei or you don't. Everyone else is fine, but they're kind of fine in an unoffensive way of like you're fine basically because you just don't really fucking do anything. And yeah, so I'll try and structure these better later on, see if we can't get something more flowing here. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys on the next stream or video. Take care, everybody.